Hello, we are back again to read a few more lines of the beautiful poem, The Problem, written by Ralph Waldo Emerson, the American poet. This is from the ninth line that we are going to study. In the earlier expression, about which we studied in the previous lecture on the problem, the poet had said, he had made an assertion that he loves the church, he likes the church, and he likes the cow. And he also loves the prophet of the soul. But for whatever much the attraction might be between his heart and the soul of the priest, he would not be a cowed churchman. That was a resolution which he sounded in the previous lines. Now we study further. He says, not from a vain or shallow thought, his awful Jove young Phidias brought. I have purpose taken this segment for study because this is about several special highlights of creations by human beings. He first refers to the Greek sculptor Phidias, who had created a statue of Zeus, the Greek god Zeus, who in Roman or in English language is called Jove. So he said that Phidias was not able to that which is counted among the 7 ancient wonders of the world, the statue of Jove, the temple of Jove, which he created, that could not come into existence if he had had a vain or shallow thought. So, not from vain. This is a double negative that he uses to give a very strong positive that it was not vain or a shallow thought. Means it was a very pithy and a very deep thought which caused the Phidias, the sculptor Phidias, to make that beautiful and phenomenal statue of Jove. There must have been a very deep insight into something. There must have been a drive, an urge, which caused him to create that. So not from that was the statue of Jove made, and never from lips of cunning fell the thrilling Delphic oracle. Again, reference to the ancient Greek system of oracles. They believed there were a group of people who would sit and foresee or foretell and answer through whenever a question was put to them about some doubt for future or a very religious query, if it was put, then oracle were those people, that set of people who would answer the mysteries, who would unfold the mysteries that were offered to them through the questions. Just as when Alexander was about to make his conquest of the world, he sought help from the oracle. So these are foretellers. They prophesy about what happens. So he says, Emerson says that these Delphic oracles, and Delphi was the place where in some caves or deep in a valley, these people sat and answered to the questions. This is Delphi. So he says that Delphic oracle, the people who foretold, yeah, who saw the future and then made a discreet answer about that, this was not possible if the oracle was a set of cunning people. Everything that is pure, everything that is right and perfect can only be told by those who are not cunning. What are the two very essential things which can make a person do something religious, do something um, of great worth? What is required? It is very much required that they shouldn't be vain or shallow, and they shouldn't be cunning. That means religion has got its roots in something very deep and in something which is actually innocent. We continue. Out from the heart of nature rolled the burdens of the Bible old. He furthers the idea that the document of religion in the West is Bible. And this Bible, we do not know who wrote it. He ascribes the writing down of a Bible by nature. He says this was written because we do not know who wrote down these documents, who wrote down these scriptures, the statement of eternity, the statement of goodness, the statement of purity, the statement of dedication to God. This Bible was written as if by the heart of nature. And the burdens, why does he say the burdens of the Bible? It is so heavy. It is such a worthwhile subject to study. It is such a worthwhile dictate to follow in life. This heavy thing was a gift from the heart of nature. The litanies of nations came like the volcano's tongue of flame. So, if we go on to decide what made the creation of nations possible, how do these, one after the other, the boundaries of nations, how did they come? It was as if a volcano had erupted. Volcano is very deep, and there are forces unseen by us, uncalculated by us, that throw out the lava. When the earth is unable to contain itself, it throws out its best in the form of volcano. The lava from the volcano. The lava, when it comes out, it falls in, it slides down through those mountain crevices and makes lines. It makes a structure. This structure, these lines of boundaries of nations, they are as if dictated by some unseen force from the earth's womb. The earth herself, nature, created these boundaries. So the litanies of nation came like the volcano's tongue of flame. Now there is an association of destruction also involved. When a volcano erupts, it causes destruction. But then when it has settled down, the lava has settled down, it is a very, very life-supporting substance. Up from the burning core below, so these came up from the burning core below. The volcano has a deep-seated origin. This is thrown out from the earth. When the earth is unable to contain itself, it thrusts it out. and these were the canticles of love and woe. So, nations, when they got marked, these were just they tell the stories of love and woe. Just as when a volcano erupts, it creates woe, suffering to the immediate close things, and then this very fertile substance that comes out is the symbol of love that earth has sent. The hand that rounded Peter's dome and groined the aisles of Christian Rome wrought in sad sincerity. The canticles, the structure that came out. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. The hand that rounded Peter's dome. See, you must have seen a house under construction. It is very easy to make a flat roof, but to make it a rounded structure takes too much of sweat from the brow, too much of sweat also from the heart, because it is not easy to lay down the dome structure. So the hands that rounded Peter's dome, St. Peter's Church in Italy, that was created by a hand. The hand which made it was wrought, was filled with sad sincerity. So sincerity is connection with God. The hand that was doing it was in fact being guided by heavens, else such a beautiful structure would have never come into existence. So the hand on earth was being dictated by hand on the from the heaven. That was wrought in sad sincerity, because it might have costed several lives also. When in those times, though of course their own crafts were very, very perfect, but still to make it would have definitely costed life. Therefore, he uses the word wrought in sad sincerity. So that hand himself from God he could not free. This is the crux of the matter. The hand that was making the dome was not free from the guidance. It was as if God was himself dictating. And here comes his transcendental thought that there is no differentiation, there is no line of demarcation between the three forces that we can see or perceive: God, man, and nature. We see that for Emerson, man is inseparable of God, man is also inseparable of nature, and nature and God are in fact identical. So there is a unity. So while these beautiful things were being created, it was as if God was lending his hand towards the construction of these immortal structures of wonder. Immortal structures which, when you look at them, you bow down automatically. Something drives you, something causes you to bow down in suppliance and in wonder when you look at these beautiful things. So himself from God he could not free. He builded better than he knew. See, how can anyone build better than he knows? If you have been given a red and a green color to create something, I may tend to make a red flower and a green leaf. Someone might tend to make a pot which is half red and half green, and someone might fuse both the colors to create a brown and can create that third color, the brown, and various shades, the hues of brown. So when do we do this? When in fact it is not a hand that is creating, it is some power beyond the hand, which comes from the heart, which comes from the mind, which is godly. So the hands that were creating, that were rounding Peter's dome, they really built it better than they knew. They must have come with a set idea that we are going to do this. But today, as we stand, this Peter's dome standing, we are wonderstruck because it was not builded just by a hand. It was builded with the hand of God. That power which animates us all. Whatever we do, that is a force from God, that is a power from God. And as a result, the conscious stone to beauty grew. So something which was a stone, which was devoid of any sensation, which was devoid of any beauty, devoid of any shape, it must have been hammered and chiseled and given the shape, and the beauty, that stone grew into a statue. So this is all because God was lending his hand. Let us just view again once more these lines in a totality. Just now we were doing a fragmented study of this. Let us now analyze this once again. I'll read them. Emerson is saying that the beautiful statue that stands as among the 7 wonders, ancient wonders of the world, made by Phidias, is something that will stand ever and ever to tell to us what man is capable of, what man could create. Then he says that the Delphic oracle could not have been given otherwise if the tongue was not of a cunning person. It had its origin from an innocent soul that was godly. Bible also, the document of religion that we have now, the old Bible, that was not created. We do not know who created it. That again is a work of God. The nations that came, the boundaries that were created on earth, the earth which is a sphere, how did these boundaries come into existence? There was a hand dictating, and the hand of God thrusting itself in the form of volcanoes, volcanic eruption, and making boundaries. And then he gives the example of Peter's dome, again a symbol of religion, again a permanent symbol of purity, of goodness, of divinity that stands on earth. He says that this has come into existence not because a human hand made it, but because God was lending his hands all the while, through and through. And therefore, see the 2 lines, the beautiful lines that the hand created better than he knew. This is applicable to Phidias creating it. This is applicable to Delphic oracle being pronounced. This is applicable to the Bible having come into existence. This is about the nations having come to existence, and about the Peter's dome, that they were builded better than any man would know. If you wonder now, how could this beauty come into existence? This is really a wonder that found its origin because God was behind this, and the conscious stone to beauty grew. Now this is again a very beautiful thing to ponder about, that this stone, these things they now stand on stone. How would anyone wonder that from the earth's crust would emerge something which is a rock, and the color of which and the texture of which would excite people to put them into monuments of everlasting beauty, of everlasting wonder, and everlasting divinity. How? Who did it? He is ascribing the making of all this to the hands of human beings. Phidias is human, the oracles are human, the ones who wrote down Bible must have been human. The Peter's dome that was created is also by human hand, but this is inseparable of the hand of God. God was doing it, and now they stand as permanent monuments in nature for all. So this is rooted in Emerson's belief, and he said once that if man can believe in God, there must be some form of God within man himself. For man can't believe or picture something that he doesn't bear himself. How would we ever know? We see that sometimes people come to suffer from cancer, and cancer is not visible. It is inside us. Only when the cells get excited to undergo a very unchecked and an uncontrolled division, that cancer comes into existence. But cancer has not entered into us from outside. It is in us. I have given a negative thing. I have talked about something that is cancer, but here I also mean to say that goodness, we sometimes see people who are branded as evil, or who are branded as not so very good about humanity. They are passing by and they see some small creature, a pup maybe, in misery, and he just lifts it up. Why did he do it? What forced him to do that? To help that creature that was in misery. It was not understood from him to react in this way. He was established as a one who would not do, but he does it. Why does he do it? Because it was in him. Dormant, but it was in him. So divinity is dormant in us. That is why, now let us go to the first 8 lines when he says, I like the church, I like the cowl. Why does he like it? He likes it because it is in him. That goodness is in us. The divinity, God is in all of us. He chooses a point of time. He chooses a few. Though he will choose them only if you perceive the presence of God and perceive the presence of nature. If we look at nature, nature is a tree growing somewhere in deserts, a palm tree. People might feel that the fruits are too very far off and that it is incapable of shedding any much of big shade for a caravan maybe that is passing by. But then someone comes in faith, lies down, and nature throws down a date, and the tired man picks it up, enjoys it. What is that? That is God directing us, telling us that He exists in nature. And the man does the same thing. It is not expected from him to do a good, but he does it because he has learned from it. And who created nature? Nature, here we will have to see the two meanings of nature. It is everything outside us, but then nature is also everything inside us. So God is everything outside us, and God is everything inside us. Think it over. Think upon the unity of God, unity of goodness that is in each and every one of us, and in everything around us. And it is therefore that the conscious stone, a seeming stone, may be transformed into a structure of permanent and everlasting beauty. Don't just read it, give it a thought. The poem is not for a cursory reading. It is not just for skimming over the lines and then coming to the conclusion that this is a problem. It is a problem that each and every one of us should give a thought about. The problem may not be that I am attracted towards church, but I don't want to go there. The problem is also that we are attracted to the core of our existence, and yet we refuse to turn inward. I hope I have been a little bit philosophical, but then the poem itself is a document of philosophy. This love for knowledge must be there in our hearts to tell to ourselves that we are people of literature, the expression of consciousness. Literature is not mathematics, something that is outward, which you can calculate and which you can prove through some formulae. It is with only one universal formula and not created by us. So, literature is a hand, a heart, and a head working together to write down as monuments of permanence, as did Phidias, as did the Delphic oracles, as is the Bible, as are the boundaries of nations, and as are the dome of St. Peter's Church. Thank you.